A new survey has found that 3 different devices are being used on average at family mealtimes. And it isn't just the children who are distracted. Almost 2/3 of parents admit to using WhatsApp or texting at the dinner table. 30% of parents do online shopping. I just can't even believe this, while they're eating dinner with their families. Do you think it's time that families got tough and banned phones, TVs and tablets to save not just the family dinner? What about table manners? How do you tell children not to talk with their mouths full if you're not even looking at them, you're scrolling while you're eating? How do you say keep your wings in and stop scraping the plate? My mother used to say, Vanessa, leave the pattern on the plate. How can you say that if you're not focusing? Table manners. What about conversation? How do they learn the art of being entertaining if nobody ever says anything to anybody? Plus, how do you know if they're happy or unhappy if you don't talk to them? John, you've just written a book about dealing with teenagers and life with teenagers, The House of the Rising Sun, and the phones, the devices, the tablets and everything else. I mean, obviously they play this vast part in everything now.
They do. Luckily for me, I mean, it does feature in my novel, but actually my novel, which is loosely based on my own real life, my sons came along, well, they were teenagers really before smartphones became a big thing. So they regularly had them nicked. They were still highly nickable, but they didn't connect them to the internet. And so I don't think they were as obsessed with them as kids can be these days. But I must say that even though I'm not really the kind of person that likes to ban anything, they would be banned at the dinner table. And as you say, conversation is important. And I mean, if everyone's going to be there sitting, eating, whilst looking at their tablets and their mobile phones, there ain't going to be no conversation. And I think that's...
Sharron, you were always training. I mean, your father made sure you trained when you had glandular fever, you trained when you had a broken arm. But did you ever actually have a chance to sit down and have family meals and talk?
Yeah, we did. I mean, we did. But it was usually at the bigger events because, as you say, I was training to quite late at night, so life was a little bit disjointed when I got a bit older. I mean, in our house, you're not allowed to sit at a table with a telephone. Personally, I'd love to see, smartphones banned for young people because I think they can be extremely dangerous. It's extremely addictive and it's very hard to change those habits. But it's back to the habits again. You talked about the adults at the table. That's relative to almost everything we do, obviously including fitness, which is what I'm very interested in. Kids watch their parents, and if parents are like this, they're just going to copy you.
And James blames the parents.
Honestly, I've had the urge to get my phone out this entire conversation.
Rude! Really. Now that is rude!
If I hadn't been sat here on TV,
I'd just like to say, on air, I'd like to see you try. I'd like to, because if you want to feel the back of my hand, young sir,
sure.
then you're going the right way about it. My goodness me, you'd be sent out over there to stand in the corner if you dared to do something
Honestly,
so
last
rude.
week when I was here, I did have my phone on the table and you made me get rid of it.
Of course I did.
I think
I did.
It's on you to be more entertaining at dinner. I think if
on the adults, why is it an adult's responsibility?
If I've got my phone out, it's because I'm probably bored and I think there's something more entertaining on my device, which, like, the likelihood is there will be. So I think just make dinner a bit more interesting.
But isn't it actually just habitual? So actually you don't know whether your parents might have the most hilarious anecdote. They might be just about to do a fabulous juggling trick with the bananas. You don't know because you're staring, they're staring, nobody's doing. My father used to say to us, I'm not kidding, I was about 7, my father went, what do you think of Kinnock? And you were 7, you're like, what? And you had to come up with it. I'm not joking, I'm completely serious. And he did it to everybody who came over to our house. If you dared set foot at Felt's Towers, that was it. You had to give a view on Kinnock, you had to say a rude limerick, you had to have a party piece and sing April Shout. I mean, you had to do something. You basically had to earn your right, even though it was your home and you lived there, to be at the table. You had to be able to say something funny, entertaining, question things. And my God, you had to be absolutely sure you didn't talk with your mouth full. You took the one nearest to you on the plate, couldn't lean over and reach for the juiciest looking donut. You had to take the miserable one that was closest to you. I mean, God supervised us within an inch of our lives at the table. Let's go to Brent, who's on the line in Sunderland. Hello, Brent.
Hi, Vanessa.
Hi. What do you think about this?
I think it's an absolute disgrace. I think it really is getting to a point now where there's no sort of... Like, there's no off switch with people anymore. I mean, I was in a restaurant the other morning having breakfast, and there was a gentleman next door to me who was eating his food extremely loudly, and then he proceeded to put his phone on speakerphone with his, I don't know who it was, might be his sister or his partner or whatever, but like 15, 20 minutes, and I had to call him up on it, and I thought, why would you do that? It just doesn't make any sense to me.
But did
You know
you
what I
did you
mean?
did you say anything to him? Did you say anything to the waiter or the
Yeah, I
manager?
did. Yeah, I didn't even finish the meal I was having, and I even said, I said, "Look, can you please take your conversation elsewhere?"
Oh.
And as I was leaving the restaurant, I'll not repeat what I said on national television, but I was just extremely frustrated and annoyed, and I don't understand why people feel it, sort of okay to just sort of go on phones, go on FaceTimes, go on WhatsApp calls or whatever it is, and it's just there's just no sort of concern or consideration for anybody
That's because
else.
they haven't been taught good manners at the dinner table because everyone's on the phone, isn't it, James?
What's the difference between me being sat with a friend having a conversation and me being sat with my phone on loudspeaker? Why is that not allowed, whereas I can sit with a friend and have a chat over dinner?
Brent, over to you.
Well, personally, I respect other people's sort of positions, freedoms. Why should I have to be part of your conversation?
Yeah, but Brett, but James is saying if he was there with his mate or his chum or his mum, they'd be talking, and you'd still have to overhear that. So what's the difference if he's on the phone? Why is that a different thing? Why was that so much more annoying, Brent?
I totally understand that. Like, don't get me wrong. Look, my sister lives in Dubai, and I have conversations with my sister. But if I was going to have a long, drawn-out conversation with my sister, especially on, say, FaceTime or whatever, I wouldn't impose that on somebody else. I would say that elsewhere.
Although I've got to say, talking of James saying people have a duty to be entertaining, sometimes other people's conversations are absolutely magnificent.
But it always tends to be one side of the conversation.
But you kind of think, well, core, what's happening at the other end?
No, I mean, I was on the train last week coming back from London, and I sat next to a lady who had a conversation with, I presume, her husband, from what she was saying, for 45 minutes.
You didn't say anything.
Next to me here, sat there. Yeah, and I'm like, oh my God, I got so fed up.
Miss your stop.
No, I know. And I knew what she was having for dinner, what she'd done the day before. It's like, no.
But you remember in the old days when we used to have house phones, and very occasionally, if you were really, really, really lucky, you'd get a crossed line. And then you could hear somebody else's conversation and listen to the whole. Do you remember that?
Yeah,
it was so much better than the telly. It was absolutely marvellous. So I think we've just got to change our attitudes to these things. That's what it is. Remember, James says it's parents' fault for being so damn boring. If you just revved it up a bit, you said something interesting, you brought your A game to the table, children just might put their phones down. That is what you said.
Well, I mean, you've misquoted me slightly.
Not really.
Sure. No, I mean, I do agree. I think it is on the... Yeah, I think just be more interesting, and then maybe everyone will be happy to do that.
How do you know how to be an interesting conversationalist, though, if nobody has a conversation?
I also think sometimes parents are probably bored of their children, and that's why their children have a screen.
Well, some children, particularly at a certain phase, boys of a certain age can be out. I remember Judy Finnegan, actually, saying her twins, she's got twin boys, as well as Jack and Chloe, and she said there was a stage at which they were just unbelievably boring. They spoke a sort of twinified teenage boy language. All they liked were superheroes, and she couldn't see a single thing in common with them. She loved them, but blimey, the conversation was hellish.
But isn't debate a skill? So if we don't have those, if we don't actually have those conversations where you are necessarily talking to different people of different age group, maybe you've got grandparents at the table, so you need to have a conversation with them, which engages with them too. If you don't do that at home, or you don't, where do they learn that skill?
Jonathan, of course, you were the sort of child that would come home from school and just tell your mother in minute detail everything you'd done. She'd say, how was your school day? And you'd oblige by describing all your emotions, feelings, thoughts. Look at his face.
Yeah. I must
His
admit
mother's
that
watching this right now.
I must admit that if there were mobile phones, smartphones in my day, I probably would have turned to them quite regularly to avoid those kind of conversations.
Were you hiding something, or you just didn't feel like describing your day, or what?
No, but I think that, well, first of all, obviously you have got the generation gap, and kids, but when you get to a certain age, kids don't necessarily want to engage with their parents all the time.
True.
But yeah, and you come back from school every day, you don't want to have the same conversation all the time.
I tell you, my girls, when they came back from school, and actually my grandchildren, they'd walk in through the door and it would be like, oh, and I'd say, I didn't even get to say, how was your day? It was like, oh, this thing happened, and this thing happened, and this terrible, this marvellous, this one. Where do you think they get that from? I don't understand that epic person. Where does that come from? I don't know. Okay, right, let's go to Linda, who's on the line in Pembrokeshire. Hi, Linda, lovely to hear from you. What about phones at the table?
Well, we don't allow TV at the family dinner table, but we allow a phone, but we only use it as a tool. So if, as a family, we're having a debate on a news topic and we want to fact check something, or bring up a family photo, a memory, then it's appropriate. But there's absolutely no excuse for a phone in a restaurant, in a public restaurant, in a public train. And there's certainly no texting your friends in the middle of a family dinner. But if it's being used as a complement to our conversation, as a complement to our time together, then we allow it.
But I love the idea of your highly researched family conversations where you keep having to pause to fact check just to make sure that everything you're saying would stand up in court. Linda, I mean, how did you get so punctilious about normal family conversations?
Because I guess I just have an odd family. We like to talk. We like to get engaged and using, again, if it's used as a tool, we're arguing, someone's saying, no, it was that year, or no, it was this, or you're wrong, then the phone becomes handy. Then it propels the conversation.
I just want to know whether Sharron can identify with this. You've got to stop the conversation, use your phone to check that the facts are correct.
We kind of do that too.
She does the same. I knew she would. I know her. I knew she would. You do the same thing.
Yeah, we do. If we get involved in a debate, and then one person's saying one thing, another one's saying another, well, okay, who's right then? So you go check it all out. Actually, you learn stuff, don't you, all the time?
Or do you, though? No one remembers anything anymore. That's why everyone's checking everything. You used to have to know a few things, Jonathan, right?
Well, that's certainly true. But yeah, I think there's plenty of time to revert to your mobile phones when you're not having dinner. I think dinner should be not sacrosanct, but I do think it's an opportunity for the family to get together, to have a good old chat, and ideally not be interrupted by smartphones all the time.
I mean, I don't want to be controversial, but I think even at the Last Supper, they'd have been on their phones, taking pictures. I mean, yeah.
Do you not think it's generational, though? Isn't that interesting that it is generational, isn't it? It's the tool that's been around the whole of your life. It's not really been around the whole of my life. I still remember having meals where they were like phones. People didn't even go and answer the phone that was ringing because it was rude.
Don't you remember your grandparents' phone numbers by heart, though? And now you don't even know your own number by heart? Exactly. What about all of that? Yeah. Let's go to Sharron in Staffordshire. Sharron, how do you feel about children and parents? Because it's by no means just the children all on screens. 3 different devices on average per meal.
Good afternoon, lovely Vanessa.
Hi, sweetheart.
And panel. And can I just quickly say, Sharron Davies, it's so lovely to see her.
That's how I feel. That's why we keep asking her back, because we love seeing her. It's exactly right. We love her.
It's so lovely to see her.
Yeah, it is.
Now, my argument is that if I had my own way, it would be banned, period, these smartphones. I think that's why we've got so many people in society with mental health problems, because people don't know how to communicate. They're on their phones all the time. You're walking on the street and they're walking into you. And
true, that's also true.
I just think it should be banned, not even just at dinner, but period, I think. I think that's why we've got so many mental health people around in our society these days. Because people don't know how to
James is laughing his head off. Why are you laughing?
Mental health people. Mental health people
with mental
in our
health
society
issues, she means.
It's so funny.
Don't you think they are made worse, though? They could be made worse by this isolation of just staring at a screen and not looking up. What about the people who check out at the supermarket and they don't even look at the person checking out their stuff because they're so busy staring at their phone they don't even say hello or thank you or goodbye
I mean,
or anything?
it is rude to do that. I mean,
That's rude.
Normally the supermarket's just a screen anyway, so I'm just interacting with my own screen whilst scanning at another screen. I do think phones, of course, cause mental health issues, but so does everything. Lots of different things. Lots of media creates those problems. For me, my phone is actually a release from anxiety of the exhaustion of the real world. So I'll sometimes go to the bathroom, with friends. I'll just pop to the bathroom, but actually I'm just using my phone for 5 minutes.
We used to take a newspaper in the old days.
That's exactly. A copy of Great Expectations would last you a couple of years. If you do. Let's go to Larry, who's on the line in London. Hi, Larry. Tell me what you do at mealtimes with your kids.
Well, I have a 9-year-old and a 10-year-old, and they both have mobile phones, which we encourage them to use, especially when we're in restaurants, because they play games on their phones, and we get some peace and quiet, and my wife and I can have a proper conversation. It's no different to them reading a book or playing on an iPad, so I can't see what the problem is.
I'm trying to compose my face in a neutral expression so I don't look as if I'm judging you, because it's not my job to be Judge Judy on this show. But why don't you include them in the conversations you're having with your wife? Isn't that the only way to prepare them for real life?